plenty of beta programs start within support organizations. Support is actually a pretty natural starting point if you think about it. They're comfortable with customers, they have enough tech knowledge, and can take a hit or two from an unruly beta tester. Today, I'm joined by the beta coordinator for Wyze, Danielle Prince. In this episode, she reveals how Wyze uses a smart mindset when thinking about beta projects.
So as specific, what is the purpose of this test? And for measurable, what data do we need and how do we get that? A for achievable, how can I set up these tests for success, not just for our testers, but for our product managers? R for relevance, are we focused on the right thing? Sometimes it gets real easy to just focus on one thing and not consider alternatives. And T for time bound, are we giving testers enough time to complete activities? And then on the flip side, developers enough time to address those discovered issues.
How social platforms, communities, and beta all live harmoniously.
So our beta testing actually began in our social media communities. And then as our product line and our user base grew, we found that social media as a testing tool wasn't quite meeting our needs and didn't seem like a sustainable option. Something that we do keep close to our hearts from those early days is one of our founding principles, which is be friends with our users.
And a secret for maximizing results to enhance customer support.
So I really wanted to use what we learn in tests to improve the support agent experience and just support in general. Use the feedback in these tests to look for resource and training opportunities.
Let's get into it. Today, I'm joined by Danielle Prince. She runs the beta program at Wyze, and I'm so excited to have her on. Thank you for joining us, Danielle.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So I'd love to start off with this very first question of, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself and your program at Wyze?
So my title is beta coordinator. I've kind of worn a few different hats at Wyze, which has been around, I guess this year will be our 7th year. Been around since the beginning. Started off as just a little support agent answering phones, and then moved on up until I was with actual Wyze HQ and bounced around in a few different areas, and kind of found my spot over on the support team, but working with beta products.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of different ways that people run programs, and I'll call it a model for a second, where sometimes you may have a product manager that is running the project. Sometimes there's a beta program manager or a coordinator. Sometimes it's a mixed group. You may have a product manager, a QA person, a support person. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about the model that you have set up at Wyze.
I wouldn't say we really have one set model. It's ever evolving based on feedback from not just our testers, but from the people that help support it, our wizard buddies, I like to call them, and our product managers. But the approach that I like to take with testing is the SMART approach. So as specific, what is the purpose of this test? And for measurable, what data do we need and how do we get that? A for achievable, how can I set up these tests for success, not just for our testers, but for our product managers? R for relevance, are we focused on the right thing? Sometimes it gets real easy to just focus on one thing and not consider alternatives. And T for time bound, are we giving testers enough time to complete activities? And then on the flip side, developers enough time to address those discovered issues.
So you're going through that on each project that you're setting up, or is it kind of like the program's goals?
It's more of the mentality I take. Different tests we approach slightly differently depending on exactly what we're testing. Hardware is going to be a little bit different than software. A hardwired doorbell would be a little bit different than a hand cam or a battery cam. So it just kind of depends, but that's the general mentality I like to take for each.
Okay. Does that change who is involved in testing? So like the resources that are available to support the test?
Typically, no.
Yeah, so if it's a bigger test or anything like that, it won't. You have basically the team that is set up to manage that.
Yes. I have a team called the Wizard. I like to call them the Wizard Buddies, who are actually support agents who assist in answering tester feedback. Um, and typically, we have three assigned Wizard Buddies per project, and two product managers, the primary and the backup per project. If there are larger tests, then we have more Wizard Buddies assigned, and if it's smaller, less.
Okay.
But typically, we always have at least the primary and a backup.
Okay. And what would the responsibilities of the wizard buddies be in these situations?
So they kind of act as tier one support in a way. They actually are support agents that have shown great promise in various areas and just grown. And we, I kind of started off as before it was even called the Wizard Buddies. I was the first support agent to ever participate um, in a managerial way in one of the tests. And we just help knock out initial feedback that doesn't necessarily need a product manager to review it. Shipping inquiries, how do I get cam flies, real basic type questions, or how do I navigate Centercode if they're not quite sure. Um, and then that way, the product managers can really focus on those higher level issues and devote their time to the main focus of the test, which is addressing issues discovered by our testers.
Okay. Are the product managers getting those tickets or those issues or the feedback? Is it getting pushed to them? So is there some kind of filtration system, or is it more they have all the feedback except for the stuff that the support team has already cleared out?
They still have access to all the feedback that comes in from all of our testers. Our wizard buddies, just if there's something they can't answer or if they see a common trend, they'll raise their hand and be like, "Hey, product manager, can you give us a little insight on how to respond to this?" And sometimes the product manager will just do the response themselves, or they'll give our wizard buddies guidance if it's a common issue we're seeing. They're like, we need to gather this specific information, or if there's troubleshooting available for us to try out, they'll be like, have them try X, Y, and Z steps.
Okay. Any other involvement within your program to I know you said product managers and you have those support teams. Is there any other involvement from other teams at Wise?
Sometimes we have marketing involved through the use of surveys, and we have some publicity waivers that go around Centercode so that we can actually use real tester videos and images when we launch a product. You'll see actual, it's not us in a studio doing comparison shots or um, just recording stuff just to show off a feature. It is real world, real user experience with the product.
Okay, so you're getting a what is it like a consent form to use the information that like we collect from a beta, and then that information marketing will use to like create some user generated content.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
pretty neat. I'd love to move on to my next question, which is very similar in veins of like other teams that are using. But I'd love to understand the synergies between what would be something like a beta program and online communities and supporting via things like social media. So, like, what is the relationship between those three things at Wise?
So our beta testing actually began in our social media communities. Um, Although Facebook groups were the main spot for our beta testing, we also utilized Reddit and our own Wise forum. We kind of got spread out, since not everyone likes the same platform when it comes to social media. Um, and then as our product line and our user base grew, we found that social media as a testing tool wasn't quite meeting our needs and didn't seem like a sustainable option. And that's when we discovered Centercode, um, which gave us more control and structure for our tests. And it gave us the added benefit of utilizing NDAs and being able to, the publicity waivers that I mentioned, and also just to be able to easily pull various types of data about both our tests and our testers. Um, Something that we do keep close to our hearts from those early days is one of our founding principles, which is be friends with our users. And so we like to approach testing in a way that ensures we're giving our users the best products possible when we end up launching to the general public. We also understand that more structured tests and hardware aren't quite everyone's cup of tea, and that some would prefer a more conversational style approach. So we are looking into ways that we can utilize our testing platform on Centercode as more of a community for the future
Okay.
for those types of people.
Now, there's definitely different when you talk about social media, you talk about forums or communities, and something like Centercode for beta testing. There's like an intent behind each one of those things. Like in social, usually you're looking for getting your opinions out there, or sharing your perspectives with other people. In communities, maybe you're looking for more of that conversation with people, and something like
Mhm.
inside Center Code, you're looking to give that feedback to someone on the product team, someone on the engineering or support team to get to influence that product. So uh, there's definitely, I think, different purposes for each of those platforms to collect feedback from users.
Mhm.
But I always get concerned because, like, when, for example, like you started off with, say, Facebook groups, and you're collecting feedback
Mhm.
inside beta there. Sometimes it definitely like muddies the water of, is this actually feedback on beta? Am I talking about the brand? Like what 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 problems did you kind of encounter with? I know you said it gets a little messy, but what other problems did you have with feedback that was out in different disparate systems?
It was really hard to, since different groups were getting created um, for different products or features. Um, there wasn't really much consistency, so it was hard to compare and contrast the success of a test. So having that more standardized, like, this is what a successful test looks like, versus a non-successful test, was pretty difficult, because um, that was a bit before my time, at Wyze, but it was more of usually whoever the product manager was leading those those tests, conversations, whatever you want to call them. Um, and so the way each person approached the test was also different. So what was expected of testers was different depending on who you were talking to. And so it was really just like, something that I like a lot about Center Code is being able to have that consistent experience across tests, which makes being able to support those tests and manage those tests much smoother for everybody involved. So you're not guessing on what's next.
Definitely. So I know a lot of people that still to this day have some things like forums, or they operate in Reddit. They'll operate in Discord or Facebook groups, or vanilla forums or anything like that. What what kind of reception did you get when you came in, you got Center Code, you set up the beta program, and now those forums and that social media platform, they remained there, they stay there. But what kind of reception did you get from your customer base, the ones that joined the beta program, about this specific space for beta testing?
Overall, it was really positive. Initially, there was confusion, about what the difference was between public beta, since there's our public beta that users can sign up for. That it's just basically, do you want early access to the next app version or the next firmware, and not necessarily and want to be a true tester of, like, I am performing specific activities for data purposes. Um, uh, But overall, it was positive. There's confusion about what a public beta versus private beta was, and just understanding where to go for that feedback. Still run into some bumps here and there, because sometimes people just get a little too excited and want to talk about secret products out in the wild. But generally, it's positive, and we also make a point, at the end of every test to send out a final survey, mostly centered around the product or feature being tested. But we also make a point to have at the end a question about the testing experience to see how we can just continue improving the process for the tester experience.
Sounds great. I'd love to hop over to our next topic, and we've you and I have talked about beta results, getting results from testing, and a lot of times it gets kind of the results get distilled into the bugs that we are going to fix before release. And you let me in on what I think is a great tip for a lot of people and in maximizing the results you get from testing. So can you tell me about the thing that you do with your results that may be different than just here's the bugs that we fixed during the beta?
Yeah. So actually, one of Wise's founding principles is maximize every component. And I really think what I've done, my little twist on Centercode when I took over, really embodies that. As I mentioned earlier, even though my title is beta coordinator, and you'd think that's more product side, product team, product side, I am on the support side at Wise. Um, and as I moved up and became, part of Wise HQ directly, uh, I always like think back to what it was like to be a support agent. There's nothing worse than being on the phone and getting yelled at for not having an answer for something for whatever reason. Um, so I really wanted to use what we learn in tests to improve the support agent experience and just support in general. Um, so, as I mentioned, I have a specialized team of support agents that I call the Wizard Buddies um, that act as tier one support and tests. And by doing that, it makes sure that generic feedback gets addressed quickly and common trends get discovered and escalated sooner. Um, my wizard buddies also use these tests, use the feedback in these tests to look for resource and training opportunities for when those devices do go to the general public. So it allows us to create more robust training and resources, not just internally for our agents, but it also allows us to get more detailed support content published on our support site, our help center, for our users right from the start. We even have uh, our senior content writer actually uh, jumps into a lot of our tests to look at feedback, and we have a little check mark next to stuff we think as our team as Wizard Buddies thinks would be helpful as a resource for the future. And so when tests wrap up, we go back through that and look for, what should be an FAQ, what should be a support article, what is a super common trend that if that many people are a little confused, maybe we should have a video about it, all that kind of stuff.
It's great. We the term that we use at Center Code for that is using all the parts of the buffalo, right? Like that is, I think that's a great
Mm.
example of. We talked earlier. You fix bugs, you get that to the engineering team, goes to the QA team. That's always good. Your marketing team's getting content, right? So they're getting some user generated content, testimonials, things that are working well about the product, things the testers like, maybe some reviews, and then your support team is getting enhanced with what is essentially the first the first launch feedback that they can prepare for their actual major launch, um, helping reduce the call times or the support tickets being generated, increasing the number of self help articles that are hit for those
Exactly.
situations. Sounds like a very robust set of results that you get to use.
And I'm very proud of our wizard buddies and just the way they've helped us grow, um, not just center code and the testing experience, but just all of the business, to be honest. Um, as we wouldn't be able to grow and be where we are today without our users. And I really think taking user feedback and making meaningful change based on that feedback is really what it's all about. And that's being friends with our users.
Exactly. And one of my biggest recommendations for people that struggle with participation, they're not getting enough engagement from their testers, is basically what you just said. It's like if you care about their feedback, if you listen to their feedback and you show them that you're using it, they're going to give you more. And that kind of like snowballs into the next
Mhm.
project, and then you set this intent behind your program that we actually care about your feedback. It's not just a black hole for data. So if you submit something here, a real person's going to read it, and it's going to go to the people that have the authority to make a change in the product. Um, And I think that's what
Mhm.
sets apart a great program from a program that just exists. Cool. I would love to get to these rapid fire questions. I'm going to go ahead and start off with the first one. Describe beta in 1 to 3 words.
Crucial, challenging, and rewarding.
Okay. The most challenging thing to do in beta.
Keep active communication between all teams involved.
Easiest thing to do in beta.
I got to shout out my wizard buddies again. They're just awesome to work with.
So getting
Just working with them is the best.
okay. Cool. One misconception about beta.
That every little thing that gets reported will be fixed by the end of a test. It's not everything that gets brought up is an issue. Sometimes it's, just the way it's designed or something random.
Okay. This one might have overlap with one of the other ones, but what is your favorite thing about beta?
Probably getting access to products before they launch.
Super cool benefit of beta testing. Coffee,
Yeah, for sure.
coffee or tea?
Chief, definitely.
Now, how do you unwind?
I'm going to sound like an old lady, but reading a good book, cross stitching, and probably spending time outside.
Everyone's got their thing. Are you watching anything on TV right now?
Lately, I've been watching Gordon Ramsay Uncharted.
Always good. Gordon Ramsay is
Yeah.
magnificent. Best piece of advice you've been given?
I don't necessarily follow it all the time like I should, but the best advice I've ever been given was to take time for wellness now, or you'll be forced to make time for illness later.
Very good. Yeah, that's advice that just keeps given because I imagine that's a constant concern for everybody. Right.
Definitely.
Danielle, thank you so much for joining me. I had a blast on the podcast. I really look forward to talking with you again.
Thank you so much. I had a blast.